In Musutafu, most afternoons looked the same. Cars moved. People hurried. A kid laughed near a crosswalk. A tired office worker stared at a phone while walking too fast. Izuku Midoriya was not supposed to be out this late without a reason. But he had one. He carried a small notebook in his bag and kept checking it like it might run away. It was a habit. He had scribbled hero notes since he was little. Even now, even after everything, he still did it. He stopped near a vending machine because his throat felt dry. He had coins in his hand. He leaned in to pick a drink. That was when the streetlights blinked once. Not a normal blink. More like the city forgot electricity for half a second, then remembered. Phones around him rebooted. A traffic signal went dark, then flashed back on. The vending machine made a loud chugging sound and spit out 3 drinks at once. Cans rolled across the sidewalk like someone had kicked them. Midoriya froze. His heart jumped. His eyes went up without him choosing to. Something blue hung in the air above the street. A man. Not flying like a hero with a quirk, not using jets or wings. Just there. Upright. Calm. Like standing on an invisible floor. His skin was bright blue, like paint that did not rub off. His face was smooth and serious. He wore nothing. He did not look embarrassed. People stared. Then someone screamed. "Villain!" a man shouted. "Is that a hologram?" Someone else yelled. A mother grabbed her child and pulled them back. Midoriya could not breathe for a moment. He had seen strange quirks. He had seen monsters and giants and living fire. But this felt different. The air itself felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. The blue man looked down at the street like he was reading a chart. A delivery truck turned the corner too fast. The driver's eyes were wide. The truck slid on the road. Tires screeched. It was heading straight for the crosswalk, where 2 kids stood frozen. "Move!" Midoriya yelled, but his voice got lost in the panic. A pro-hero leaped in from the side. Kamui Woods, tall and fast, wooden arms stretching out. He aimed to grab the truck and pull it away. The truck was too heavy. The road was too slick. The wood creaked. Kamui Woods' feet cut lines in the pavement as he tried to hold it. Midoriya felt his body start to move. He did not even think. He pushed off the ground, ready to throw himself forward. The blue man lifted one hand. There was no flash, no beam, no loud blast. The truck simply stopped, not slammed to a halt, not crushed. Stopped perfectly, like it had become part of a picture. The kids on the crosswalk blinked like they woke from a dream. Kamui Woods stared at the truck. His arms were still wrapped around it, but the strain was gone. It was as if the world had decided gravity was optional for that one object. Then, slowly, the truck moved sideways, floating, sliding through the air without touching the road. It drifted into an empty lane and lowered gently until all 4 tires kissed the asphalt. The driver sat there shaking, hands stuck on the steering wheel. Midoriya's mouth fell open. People clapped. Then they stopped clapping because they didn't know if that was safe. A second pro-hero landed on a rooftop with the soft sound of feathers, hawks. He looked relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. His wings spread just a little, ready. "Okay," Hawks said under his breath. "That's not a normal quirk." Hawks jumped down, keeping distance. His feathers floated around him like ready tools. "Hey," Hawks called out, voice friendly on purpose. "You're causing a bit of a scene. Mind telling me who you are?" The blue man looked at him. His eyes were calm. Not cold, exactly. More like very far away. "I am here," the blue man said. Hawks forced a small smile. "Yeah, I noticed. I mean your name." The blue man paused, like the question was not useful. "Names are labels," he said. "You use them to sort people." "That is true," Hawks admitted, still smiling. but it helps us talk without yelling, "Blue glowing stranger" all day. A police officer below fumbled with a radio, requesting backup. "Unknown hostile. Possibly." The blue man turned his head slightly toward the officer. The radio in the officer's hand became silent. Not broken. Not crushed. Just quiet. Like it had never been turned on. The officer stared at it, and then at his own hand, as if his hand had betrayed him. Hawk's feathers twitched. "Hey," he said, softer now. "Don't mess with their equipment." "I did not damage it," the blue man replied. "I changed the arrangement of the parts. It can be restored." Hawks' smile thinned. "You changed the arrangement of the parts?" "Yes." Midoriya watched from the sidewalk, heart pounding. He felt something else too. A deep fear that did not have a shape yet. The blue man looked out over the city, past the people, past the buildings, like he was looking at something behind the sky. "An anomaly," he said, almost to himself. Hawks narrowed his eyes. "Anomaly?" The blue man's gaze stayed on the horizon. "This world has different rules. It is loud. It is full of energy." Midoriya swallowed. "Different rules," he whispered. The blue man finally looked back down, and for 1 second, Midoriya felt like the man was looking through him, not at him. Then the blue man spoke again, and the words landed like a warning, even though his tone did not change. "Something will notice." The next hour moved fast, like someone pressed a button. Sirens arrived. Police lines went up. Pro-heroes spread out to keep civilians back. Cameras flashed until officers told people to stop. Hawk stayed close, keeping the mood calm while his feathers quietly mapped distances and angles. He kept one feather near the blue man's shoulder, not touching, just measuring. Endeavor arrived in a blast of heat and smoke. His boots hit the road hard. His fire beard flared like he was stepping into a war. People cheered because Endeavor was a symbol of force. People also cheered because cheering made them feel less afraid. Endeavor looked up at the floating man, eyes hard. "You," he said. "Explain yourself." The blue man floated down a little, lowering until he was only a few meters above the street. He did it slowly, like he was not trying to scare anyone. "I am not your enemy," he said. Endeavor's flames rose higher. "You appear out of nowhere, shut down police comms, and float naked over my city. That is not how not an enemy works." Hawks gave Endeavor a quick side look like, "Please don't punch the mystery god in public." A paramedic pushed through the crowd holding a thermal blanket. She looked scared but determined. She held it up like it was a peace offering. "Sir," she said, voice shaking, "please, cover yourself. People are panicking." The blue man looked at the blanket. He reached out and took it. For a second, the crowd relaxed. Then the blanket turned into a neat stack of thin threads, perfectly aligned, like someone had unknitted it in one smooth motion. The paramedic froze, mouth open. "I do not require fabric for warmth," the blue man said. Somewhere in the crowd, a teenager started to laugh in pure shock. The laugh made other people laugh too, nervous and confused. Endeavor's jaw tightened. "Hawks, get him under control." Hawks raised both hands. "Working on it." He turned back to the blue man. "We need you to come with us. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere safe." "Safe for whom?" the blue man asked. Hawks hesitated. "For everyone." The blue man seemed to accept that answer like it was a basic fact. He nodded once. Then he vanished. Not ran away. Not flew off. Vanished like he had never been there. The crowd screamed again. Endeavor's flames burst up. Hawks's feathers shot out on instinct. And then, 1 second later, the blue man reappeared, standing on the roof of a nearby building, looking down like he was waiting for them to catch up. Hawks let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "Okay," Hawks muttered. He can teleport. Endeavor blasted up toward the roof. Hawks followed, moving fast but careful. Midoriya stared up, eyes wide, heart racing, and wrote one shaky line in his notebook without thinking. Not a quirk, something else. Later, behind tall fences and high walls, the blue man stood inside UA High School. He did not resist when they brought him. He simply appeared in the secure yard when Hawks asked him to follow. That was the most frightening part. He did not need to break in. He did not need permission. He just arrived. Nezu waited for him with a small group of staff. Aizawa stood a few steps back, hands in his pockets, eyes half-lidded like he was bored. All Might stood tall and bright, smile steady, even though his eyes looked worried. Nezu offered the blue man a simple school tracksuit, the kind students wore during training. It was folded neatly. "This is not a prison," Nezu said kindly. "But it is a school. We have rules. Clothing is one of them." The blue man looked at the tracksuit. Then, with no sound, the tracksuit lifted off Nezu's hands and wrapped itself around the blue man's body, like it wanted to be there. The fabric stretched to fit perfectly. No wrinkles, no loose threads. Nezu blinked. "Oh, thank you." All Might's smile held, but his voice softened. "We want to understand you, and we want to make sure you are safe here." The blue man looked at All Might, and for a moment, All Might felt like the man could see every scar, every secret, every moment of fear that All Might never showed on TV. "I do not think safety is possible," the blue man said. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "That depends. Are you dangerous?" The blue man's face stayed calm. "Yes." Silence hit the room like a heavy door closing. All Might took a step forward anyway. "Dangerous does not mean evil." The blue man turned his head slightly, like he was listening to something far away. "I was human," he said. Nezu's ears lifted. "Were. I died," the blue man continued, voice flat. "I returned. I am not the same." Aizawa did not blink. "Name?" The blue man paused again. "Jonathan Osterman," he said at last. Nezu nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Osterman." Aizawa kept his stare. "Where are you from?" "Not here," Osterman replied. All Might tried a different angle, gentler. "Why did you come?" Osterman's eyes drifted to the sky above the training yard, even though a roof blocked it. "I did not choose this place on purpose," he said. "I was leaving my world. I crossed into another." Nezu's mind moved fast. A being who crossed worlds. That meant the universe was bigger than they thought. It also meant they might not be alone. Nezu kept his voice light. "And what do you want now?" Osterman looked down at his hands, then at Nezu. "To observe." Aizawa's tone was dry. "Great. A god tourist." All Might shot Aizawa a warning glance. Osterman did not react to the sarcasm. He only said, "You have many empowered humans. You call it quirks." Nezu nodded. "Yes, quirks are genetic abilities. Most people have them." Osterman's eyes narrowed a tiny bit, like curiosity finally touched him. "It is unstable." Nezu's smile did not move, but his stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Osterman looked through the wall again, like walls were suggestions. "The power in your world is growing," he said. "It will concentrate. It will strain your bodies. It will strain your society." Aizawa felt a cold line run down his spine. He had heard theories. He had seen kids with stronger quirks every year. The quirk singularity idea was not a bedtime story. All Might's smile softened into something serious. "If you know something, we can work together. We can help people." Osterman looked back at him. "Help is a choice." All Might nodded. "Yes, that's what being a hero is." Nezu clapped his paws once, breaking the tension with a controlled cheerfulness. All right. First steps. We will do some non-invasive tests. Simple scans. Questions. No needles unless you agree. Osterman's eyes flicked to Nezu. Needles are not necessary. Nezu's smile widened, just a bit too bright. Wonderful. They moved him into a large observation room with thick glass and sensors. The room was built for villains with dangerous quirks, but it was still, in the end, a room. And Nezu could feel it. Everyone could. A room could not hold him. Midoriya sat in a different room with several other students, told to wait and not wander. He could barely sit still. His notebook was open again. Bakugo paced like a caged animal. "This is stupid," he snapped. "If he's a villain, we should fight him. If he's not, why are we hiding?" Todoroki stood near the window, arms folded. His eyes were calm, but his shoulders were tense. "Because we don't know what he is." Midoriya looked up. "He stopped a truck without touching it," he said. Voice rushed. "He shut off a radio by changing its parts. That's not like any quirk I've seen." Bakugo scoffed. "Everything is a quirk until proven otherwise." Midoriya shook his head. "No. Quirks have limits. They have a shape. This doesn't." Bakugo pointed a finger at him. "And you're already worshipping him." "I'm not," Midoriya said, too loud. He forced himself to breathe. "I'm trying to understand." Bakugo's eyes burned. "If he's strong, I'll beat him." Todoroki spoke quietly, and that was somehow louder than Bakugo. "You can't beat someone who doesn't need to fight." Bakugo stopped pacing for 1 second. His face twisted like those words hurt. Midoriya looked down at his notebook and wrote another line. "Some power makes everyone feel small, even the brave." In the observation room, Aizawa watched through the glass. Osterman stood still. He did not fidget. He did not look around. It was like time did not push on him the same way. Nezu asked calm questions. "Do you sleep? Do you eat? Do you have a heartbeat?" Osterman answered with simple truth. "No, not in the way you mean." All Might stayed near the door, arms crossed in a careful way, posture strong. He looked like a wall you could lean on. Aizawa did not trust walls. Aizawa leaned toward the microphone. "If you're not human, why do you speak like one?" Osterman turned his head. "Because I remember being one." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "Memory isn't a moral code?" Osterman's gaze met his. Steady. "Correct." Nezu tapped a pen on his clipboard. "Do you have any interest in harming people here?" Osterman's answer came too fast. "Not presently." All Might's smile stiffened. "Not presently?" Osterman looked at him, almost curious. "Interest changes. Situations change." Aizawa felt his stomach drop. He hated honesty when it sounded like a warning. Aizawa asked the question that mattered most. "Can you be stopped?" Osterman paused. For the first time, the pause felt like respect. "I do not know," Osterman said. "In my world, humans tried." All Might's eyes sharpened. "And?" Osterman's voice stayed flat. "They failed." Silence again. Nezu's ears flicked. Aizawa's fingers twitched, ready to pull his capture weapon even though he knew it would be useless. All Might stepped closer to the glass. "Mr. Osterman," he said, firm but kind. "We have children here. If you stay, we need trust." Osterman looked through the glass at All Might. Like All Might was a puzzle. "Trust is an emotion," Osterman said. All Might nodded. "Yes, and it's also a choice we make anyway." Osterman's eyes drifted, like he was looking at something that was not in the room. "I can see this moment," he said. "I can also see other moments. Your trust breaks. It heals. It breaks again." Aizawa's voice cut in. "Stop talking like that. You're not helping." Osterman turned his head back to Aizawa. I am describing what is. Aizawa's jaw tightened. No. You're describing what you think can't change. Nezu leaned forward, curious despite himself. Can it change? Osterman did not answer right away. Then he said, sometimes. All Might felt a small spark of relief, and he hated himself for feeling it. Relief was not a plan. Relief was not a shield. Nezu glanced at Aizawa and All Might. We will set boundaries, Nezu said, voice gentle but final. UA is willing to host you for now, Mr. Osterman. But you must follow basic rules. Osterman tilted his head. Rules? Nezu smiled. Yes. No sudden appearances in private spaces. No changing people without consent. No leaving the campus without telling us. Osterman looked thoughtful. Consent is a social tool. Aizawa's eyes hardened. It's not a tool. It's a line. Osterman held his stare for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Understood. Nezu let out a breath. Good. Aizawa did not breathe easier. He could see it clearly. Osterman was not agreeing because he feared consequences. He was agreeing because he decided it was reasonable. That meant, if he ever decided it was not reasonable, nothing could stop him. In a clean office far from UA, members of the Hero Public Safety Commission watched recordings on a large screen. A woman in a dark suit paused the video where the truck froze in midair. That is beyond classification, she said. A man beside her, older, with tired eyes, spoke quietly. We need him registered, controlled. Controlled how? The woman asked. The older man did not answer. He only stared at the blue man on the screen. We control the story, he said at last. We decide what the public believes he is. Hero, weapon, threat. We choose the label. The woman's lips pressed thin. And if he refuses the label? The older man's voice became a whisper. Then we build the world around him until he has no choice. Elsewhere, deeper in the shadows, a different pair of eyes watched the same news. All for one sat in darkness like it belonged to him. The screen light reflected off a calm smile. A man who rearranges matter, he murmured. A man who stands outside fear. He leaned his head to one side, as if tasting the idea. People think power is the main problem, he said. It isn't. He smiled wider. The main problem is meaning. The first night at UA did not feel like night. Osterman stood on the roof of a secure building, looking out over the city. The wind touched his tracksuit and moved it softly. He did not shiver. He did not blink much. All Might approached slowly, keeping his steps loud enough to be polite. You're up here, All Might said. Osterman turned his head. Yes. All Might stood beside him, looking out at Musutafu. Lights. People. Life continuing because it had to. You said something earlier, All Might said. You said something we'll notice. Osterman's eyes stayed on the horizon. An event like my arrival creates ripples. All Might swallowed. And what notices ripples? Osterman's voice stayed calm. Those who watch for change. All Might's smile returned, smaller now, but real. Then we will be ready. Osterman looked at him. Ready is a feeling. All Might chuckled once, tired but stubborn. No, ready is a choice. Osterman did not smile. He did not laugh. But he watched All Might for a long moment, as if All Might was the most unusual thing in the city. Then Osterman said softly, You are loud in time. All Might blinked. Is that good? Osterman looked back at the city. It is. Noticeable. And far away, in the dark places of Musutafu, plans began to move. The attack began at a place that heroes hated for one simple reason. There were too many people. Musutafu Central Station was crowded. The evening rush was thick. The noise never stopped. It was the kind of place where one wrong move could hurt hundreds. Shota Aizawa arrived with a small team because he did not like patterns, and this day felt like a pattern. He had his scarf ready. His eyes were sharp. Hawks landed nearby, pretending to be casual. "You feel it too?" Hawks asked quietly. Aizawa's voice was flat. "I always feel it." Endeavor arrived next, fire low but present, like a warning. "If they show their faces," he growled, "I'll burn them down." Aizawa shot him a hard look. "Not with civilians packed like this." Endeavor's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. The station speakers crackled. A cheerful voice announced arrivals and departures, like nothing was wrong. Then the lights went out. Not all at once, not like a normal blackout. The lights dimmed in a wave, moving across the ceiling like a shadow crawling. People gasped. Phones lit up. A child started to cry. Aizawa's eyes scanned fast. "Evac routes," he said into his radio. Hawks's feathers spread and flew out, slipping through the crowd like invisible guides. "On it," Hawks murmured. "I'll make lanes." Endeavor's fire flared just enough to give light. "Stay calm," he shouted. His voice boomed, strong and sharp. "Move to the exits in an orderly manner." That helped. People listened to Endeavor because fear made them grab onto any loud order. Then the floor near the center of the station cracked. A hand pushed up through concrete. Then another. A figure rose like a nightmare crawling out of a grave. Tamura Shigaraki stood there, dust falling from his coat. His hair was messy. His eyes were hungry. His lips curled in a half-smile that did not reach his eyes. "Ah," Shigaraki said, voice rough, almost cheerful. "Look at this." Aizawa's blood went cold. "Shigaraki." Shigaraki's gaze moved past the heroes, not focused on them. It searched the crowd, like he was looking for a special toy. "Where is the blue guy?" Shigaraki asked. Endeavor stepped forward, flames rising. "You're not leaving this place." Shigaraki laughed. "That's cute." Black mist twisted behind Shigaraki. Kurogiri formed, calm and quiet, like a doorman opening a door. "Let's make it loud," Shigaraki said. A Nomu dropped through the mist, big, heavy, and fast. Its muscles were thick. Its eyes were empty. It roared and sprinted right into the crowd. People screamed and stampeded. Aizawa moved instantly. His scarf snapped out and wrapped the Nomu's arm, yanking it sideways. He activated his quirk, eyes red, trying to shut down whatever the Nomu had. The Nomu still moved. It slowed, but it did not stop. Aizawa's mind flashed. Modified. Multiple quirks. Built to push through erasure. Hawk's feathers flew, slicing signs down to block paths, forcing the crowd towards safe exits. He used feathers like hands, pushing people forward, pulling kids up, guiding them around danger. Endeavor blasted fire across the floor, creating a wall of heat between the Nomu and the largest group of civilians. The fire did not touch people. It was shaped carefully. Like a bright fence. Shigaraki watched with a grin. "Good," he said. "Be heroes. Be busy." He lifted a hand toward a support pillar that held part of the ceiling. Aizawa saw it and shouted, "No!" Shigaraki touched the pillar. Decay spread like fast rot through wood and steel and stone. The pillar crumbled. The ceiling above groaned. Chunks of concrete started to fall. This was what Shigaraki wanted. Not a fight. A disaster. Because heroes had to choose who to save first. Aizawa's eyes snapped toward the ceiling. He calculated in a heartbeat. Too many falling points. Too many people. Endeavor fired upward, trying to burn away falling debris into smaller pieces. Hawks's feathers shot up, catching chunks, holding them for seconds, buying time. It was not enough. A huge section of ceiling broke free, heavier than a truck, falling straight toward a packed platform. Aizawa's lungs tightened. He ran, even though he knew he could not stop it. And then the air changed. The falling ceiling stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Dust hung in the air like frozen snow. Everyone froze too, as if their bodies copied the ceiling. Aizawa's head snapped up. A figure stood above the platform, floating in the dim light. Blue skin. Calm face. UA tracksuit. Jonathan Osterman had arrived. No warning, no footsteps. Just there. Shigaraki's grin widened. There you are. Osterman looked at the ceiling piece. He lifted one hand, almost bored. The broken concrete reformed. Cracks sealed. Steel bars slid back into place, as if time reversed for the material alone. The ceiling moved back up, fitting perfectly into the station like it had never broken. People stared, mouths open. Hawk's feathers paused midair, like Hawks himself forgot to breathe. Endeavor's flames dipped for 1 second, then flared again out of habit. Aizawa felt a cold truth settle in his bones. This was not rescue. This was rewriting reality. Osterman turned his head toward Shigaraki. "You are causing harm," he said. Shigaraki took a step forward, hands twitching. "Yeah," he said. "That's the point." The Nomu charged again, leaping high, aiming to smash into the blue man like a missile. Osterman did not dodge. The Nomu hit him, and nothing happened. The impact did not throw Osterman back. It did not even move him. The Nomu's fist sank into Osterman's body like punching thick water, then stopped like it hit a wall that was not there. Osterman looked down at the Nomu's arm inside him, expression unchanged. Then the Nomu fell apart. Not into gore. Not into explosion. Into harmless pieces of matter, arranged into smooth gray blocks, like someone turned a monster into building material. The blocks clattered to the floor. Aizawa's eyes widened despite himself. He had seen Endeavor burn Nomu to ash. He had seen All Might smash them. He had never seen one erased like a bad drawing. Shigaraki stared for a second. His smile faltered, then returned, sharper. "That's cheating," Shigaraki said, voice light but angry. Osterman's eyes met his. "It is capability." Shigaraki lunged. He moved fast, faster than most civilians could even track. He aimed his hand for Osterman's chest, trying to decay him, trying to prove the blue man could be broken. Osterman did not step away. Shigaraki's fingers touched the tracksuit. For one tiny moment, Aizawa expected decay. The tracksuit did not crumble. Instead, the fabric shifted. It became something else, smoother, denser, like a material that did not know how to rot. Shigaraki's eyes widened. "What?" Osterman placed a hand lightly on Shigaraki's wrist. Shigaraki froze. Not paralyzed by pain, not restrained by force, just held in place, like the idea of moving stopped applying to his arm. Shigaraki strained. His muscles shook, his face twisted with rage. "Let go," he snarled. Osterman's voice stayed flat. "If I release you, you will attempt harm again." Shigaraki's laugh turned rough. "No kidding." Hawk's feathers hovered near Shigaraki's throat, ready, but Hawks did not strike. He looked between Osterman and Shigaraki like he was watching a bomb and hoping it chose not to explode. Endeavor stepped closer, heat radiating. "Finish him," Endeavor said, low and hard. Aizawa's head snapped toward Endeavor. "No!" Endeavor's eyes burned. "He's a mass murderer!" Aizawa's voice was sharp. "Not in front of civilians! Not in front of kids!" Endeavor glared. "He can end this!" Aizawa shot a look at Osterman, and for once, Aizawa let fear show in his eyes. Because Endeavor was right. Osterman could end it. Right now. Osterman looked at Endeavor, then at Aizawa, then at the crowd, where people stared with wide eyes, where children clung to parents, where phones recorded everything. His face did not change, but something in his stillness shifted. I can remove him, Osterman said. Shigaraki's grin returned, even while his arm was trapped. Do it, he hissed. Show them what you are. Aizawa felt his throat tighten. This was the trap. This was always the trap. Shigaraki wanted the world to see a hero become an executioner. He wanted fear to win. All Might wasn't here, but his shadow was. The idea of a symbol, the idea of restraint. Osterman looked down at Shigaraki. I have ended lives before, Osterman said, almost quietly. Hawks's eyes widened. Endeavor's flames rose. Aizawa's body tensed, ready to move, even though he did not know what he could do. Then Osterman continued. It did not create order, he said. It created silence. Shigaraki's smile twitched. Osterman lifted his free hand and pointed, not at Shigaraki, but at the dark mist behind him. Kurogiri, the warp gate villain, stood still, one hand raised, ready to pull Shigaraki out if things went wrong. Osterman's finger moved slightly. The purple mist shuddered. Then the mist collapsed inward, like a wind sucked it into a bottle. Kurogiri's body flickered, his form losing shape. For 1 second, he looked like a set of moving parts that did not agree on how to fit. Kurogiri staggered, voice cracking. Shigaraki! Shigaraki's eyes snapped to him. Kurogiri! Osterman spoke like he was reading a result. You are bound by structure. I can disrupt it. Kurogiri panicked and opened a warp gate with a shaky motion. The gate was unstable, edges flickering. Shigaraki yanked his arm with everything he had, trying to break free. Osterman released him. Shigaraki stumbled back, surprised, then scrambled through the warp gate without thinking. Next time, Shigaraki spat, voice shaking with anger. I'll bring something even you can't ignore. The gate snapped shut. Silence hit the station. People did not cheer. Not yet. They just stared at the blue man who had stopped a disaster like it was nothing, who had turned a monster into blocks, who had held a top villain like he was a child. Endeavor's fists clenched. He looked furious, like the retreat was an insult. We had him. Hawks lowered his feathers slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. We didn't have anything, Hawks said quietly. He did. Aizawa stared at Osterman. You let him go, Aizawa said. Osterman looked back. He would have died if I chose it. Aizawa's voice went tight. And you didn't. Osterman's eyes drifted to the crowd again. They were watching. Aizawa felt something twist inside him, relief and fear at the same time. So you care what they think? Osterman's answer was honest in the worst way. I recognize consequences, Endeavor scoffed. That's not care. Osterman did not argue. He turned slightly, looking at the broken parts of the station that were already repaired. He looked at people holding each other. He looked at a little boy staring at him with a face that said, Are you a hero? Then Osterman spoke again, soft but clear. This event has now been recorded, he said. It will spread. Hawk swallowed. Yeah, he muttered. It already is. Aizawa's radio crackled back to life in his ear. Reports came in fast. News vans, live streams, people chanting outside the station, people calling UA, people calling the Commission, people calling anyone who might explain what a blue man meant for their world. Aizawa looked at Osterman and made a choice in his own way. Come back with us, he said. Now. Osterman nodded once. Then he glanced toward the far end of the station. Past walls, past steel, as if he could see through everything. His face stayed calm, but his words landed like a new problem. Someone else is paying attention, he said. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Who? Osterman's gaze stayed fixed on something no one else could see. I cannot name it yet, he replied, but it is turning its head. And in the shadows, far from the station, All for One watched the retreat on replay, again and again, smiling like he had just learned the best secret in the world. "Good," he whispered. "He can be moved. Not by fists, not by fear. By the one thing even a god could struggle with. Purpose." By morning, Musutafu felt like it had a new sun, not in the sky, on every screen. Clips from the station were everywhere. A ceiling piece froze in midair. A monster turned into gray blocks. A villain got held like his arm was stuck in glue. People replayed it again and again, pausing at the same frames like the answers were hidden there. Some people called the blue man an angel. Some called him a demon. Some called him the end of heroes. Some called him the greatest hero who ever lived, even though he had not said that word once. A middle-aged woman in a grocery line watched the video while her son held her sleeve. "Mom, is he on our side?" the boy asked. She did not know what to say. She stared at the screen, at the calm face, at the way he did not look angry or proud. "I don't know," she said at last. "He looks like he doesn't pick sides." Her son frowned. "But heroes pick sides." "Yeah," she whispered. "They do." Across town at UA, Nezu watched the same clips without sound. He did not need sound. He could see the problem in the shapes of people's faces. Awe was easy to handle. Fear was harder. Fear spread faster. And now fear had a name. Not a real name. A nickname. The Blue God. Nezu's paw tapped his desk once, then stopped. He reminded himself not to show stress. Everyone around him took cues from him, even when they pretended they did not. In the secure building, Jonathan Osterman stood in a plain room with plain walls. It was not a cell. It was called a guest space, but the door still had more locks than a normal door, and everyone knew it. Osterman wore the UA tracksuit again, the same one. The fabric sat on his body like it was part of him, like clothes were another layer of skin he could accept when it was useful. Nezu stepped in with a clipboard and a calm smile. "Good morning," Nezu said. Osterman looked at him. "It is morning for you." "Yes," Nezu said, letting it pass. "How did you find the station last night?" Osterman's eyes drifted, as if he could still see the crowd frozen in fear. "It was a convergence. Many bodies. Many fragile structures." "That is one way to describe it," Nezu replied. Nezu offered him a small white cup of tea out of habit, then remembered and pulled it back, embarrassed at himself. Osterman watched the cup. "You offer warmth as a signal of peace." Nezu blinked. "Yes, that is correct." Osterman reached out. The teacup floated from Nezu's paw and hovered in the air between them. Then it drifted back and set itself gently on the desk. "I do not require it," Osterman said, "but I understand the intent." Nezu nodded. "Thank you." A soft knock came from the door, then another. Then the door opened too fast. Like the person outside was in a hurry. Present Mike leaned in, loud hair and louder energy forced into a careful whisper. "Principal, media's outside again. They want statements. They want—" Present Mike stopped when he saw Osterman. Present Mike's eyes flicked down, then up, then down again, as if checking for something. Present Mike said. "He's dressed. Good. Great. Love that." Osterman stared at him. Present Mike tried to smile. "Okay, I'm leaving now." He backed out like the room had become hotter. Nezu waited until the door shut, then sighed. "We are adjusting." Osterman's voice stayed calm. "Adjustment is inevitable." Nezu leaned forward, ears perked. "We need rules, Mr. Osterman, not to control you, to protect everyone, including you." Osterman tilted his head. "Protection from what?" Nezu kept smiling, but his eyes sharpened. "From fear. From panic. from governments making poor choices, from villains trying to use you. Osterman's gaze did not change. They will try. Nezu's paw tightened on his clipboard. Yes, that's why we must be careful. Osterman looked at the wall, then through it, as if the building was only a drawing. This place is not designed for beings like me. Nezu swallowed. No, it isn't. Then Nezu chose the next words carefully, like stepping across thin ice. Tell me something, Nezu said. In your world, did you have a title? A role? Something people called you? Osterman did not answer at once. Then he said, They called me Dr. Manhattan. Nezu's pen stopped mid-note. The name hit like thunder, even though it was spoken like a weather report. Nezu kept his face calm. Dr. Manhattan, he repeated. Why? Osterman's eyes moved slightly, like the memory was far away. It was a political choice, a symbol. They named me after a place, to make me feel like I belonged to them. Nezu's smile became smaller, more thoughtful. So even your name was a leash. Osterman looked at him. Yes. Nezu wrote the words down anyway, even though he knew paper could not hold what this meant. Hawks sat in a quiet meeting room inside a government building that looked clean in a way that made people feel small. A large screen showed the station footage again. Freeze frame on Shigaraki's hand, inches from Osterman's chest. Freeze frame on the gray blocks. Around Hawks sat people who did not wear hero costumes. They wore suits. They wore calm faces. They spoke as if the world was a budget problem. The older man from the commission leaned forward. We cannot allow an unregistered asset to operate freely, he said. Hawks kept his smile light. You're calling him an asset. The woman beside the older man didn't flinch. Call him whatever you want. The public is calling him God. That is unacceptable. Hawks leaned back, pretending relaxed. So what's the plan? Handcuffs? A few people frowned at his tone. Hawks did not care. If he acted too serious, they would think he agreed. The older man's voice turned cold. We set the narrative. We set the rules. We decide his status. Hawks lifted one eyebrow. And if he says no? The woman tapped the screen where Osterman's hand touched Kurogiri's mist. We don't ask, she said. We push. We corner. We make no costly. Hawks's smile stayed, but his stomach twisted. Costly to who? The older man did not answer directly. We will speak with UA. We will speak with all might. We will offer cooperation. If they refuse, we remind them who grants licenses. Hawk's feathers, hidden under his jacket, flexed like they wanted out. He pictured UA students watching that station footage. He pictured them seeing adults fight over a being who could erase the building they sat in. He kept his voice casual. You're treating him like a weapon. The woman met his eyes. He is a weapon that thinks. Hawks's smile widened slightly, like a friendly joke. And weapons don't like being owned. The older man's eyes narrowed. Then we teach him that ownership is safer than freedom. Hawks wanted to laugh. Instead, he nodded like he was listening. Inside, he thought, they are about to poke a storm and act shocked when it rains. Aizawa did not sleep much. He tried. He lay down in his office chair with his scarf as a blanket. He stared at the ceiling until his eyes burned. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the ceiling of the station freezing in place. He saw Osterman's calm face. Aizawa had fought villains with world-class quirks. He had faced monsters built to kill. He understood danger. This was different. This was danger without effort. It was not rage. It was not hate. It was the simple fact that Osterman could change the world, like moving furniture. In the morning, All Might found Aizawa in the hallway outside the secure wing. All Might looked tired too, but he still stood like a symbol. back straight, shoulders wide. "You haven't gone home," All Might said. Aizawa's voice was flat. "Neither have you." All Might's smile flickered. "Fair." They walked together, slow, like two people circling the same fire. Aizawa spoke first. "He said he's dangerous." All Might nodded. "He was honest." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "Honest doesn't mean safe." All Might's smile faded into something serious. "No, it doesn't. But it means he isn't hiding." Aizawa stopped near a window that looked out over training grounds. A few students were there, not training, just standing and whispering. Fear made them quiet. Aizawa turned back to All Might. "What happens when he gets bored?" All Might's jaw tightened. "We don't let him get bored." Aizawa stared at him. "That's not how boredom works. You can't punch boredom. You can't lecture it." All Might's eyes softened. "Then we show him meaning." Aizawa snorted, but it wasn't truly mockery. It was exhaustion. "You think meaning is enough to hold a god in place?" All Might did not look away. "I think meaning is the only thing that holds anyone in place, even us." Aizawa's shoulders sank a little. "You're hoping?" All Might nodded. "Yes, I am." Aizawa's voice dropped. "Hope is not a plan." All Might took a breath. "No, but it's what makes us build plans in the first place." Aizawa's eyes flicked toward the secure building. "Here's my plan," Aizawa said. "We make boundaries, we watch him, we keep students away, and we prepare contingencies." All Might's smile returned, small and sad. "You were always going to do that." Aizawa's mouth tightened. "Because if we don't, and he decides we're a problem, this school ends in 1 second." All Might's eyes hardened. "Then we give him reasons not to decide that." Aizawa's stare held for a long moment. Then, Aizawa looked away first. "Fine," he said, "but I'm still building contingencies." All Might gave a short laugh. "I expected nothing less." Midoriya sat outside the secure building because he had been told not to go inside. So he sat right outside it. He held his notebook and pretended he was just taking notes on clouds. His eyes kept drifting to the doors. Todoroki stood a few steps behind him, quiet like a guard who did not want to be seen as a guard. "You're going to get yelled at," Todoroki said. Midoriya's voice was soft. "I know." Bakugo stomped up a second later, hands in his pockets, face like a thunderstorm. "You're both pathetic," Bakugo said. Midoriya didn't look up. "Go away," Bakugo scoffed. "Like I'd listen to you." The secure door opened. Osterman stepped out, walking like footsteps were optional. He stopped when he saw Midoriya sitting on the ground like a kid waiting outside a principal's office. Osterman looked at him. "You are persistent." Midoriya stood too fast and almost tripped. Sorry. I wanted to ask you something." Bakugo snapped. "Don't talk to him like he's your friend." Osterman glanced at Bakugo. "Your anger is loud." Bakugo's face went red. "Shut up!" Todoroki shifted slightly, ready, even though he knew there was nothing to do if this went bad. Midoriya forced himself to breathe. "Mr. Osterman," he said, "you said they called you Dr. Manhattan." Osterman nodded once. Midoriya swallowed. "Do you want to be called that here?" Osterman's head tilted. "Names do not change what I am." Midoriya nodded quickly. "I know. People need something to call you that isn't monster or god." Osterman looked down at Midoriya like he was measuring him. "You fear labels," Osterman said. Midoriya's cheeks warmed. "I fear what labels do to people." Osterman stared for a long moment. Then he said, "You are different from the others." Midoriya blinked. "Different how?" "You look at power and ask how it should be used," Osterman said. Most look at power and ask how it can be owned. Bakugo scoffed loudly. What's that supposed to mean? Osterman did not answer him. He kept his attention on Midoriya. Midoriya's voice shook, but he pushed through. At the station, you could have ended Shigaraki. You didn't. Was it because it would look bad? Osterman's eyes did not narrow, but his focus sharpened. It would have had consequences. Midoriya pressed. Careful now. Is that the only reason? Osterman paused. The pause felt heavier than his words. Then he said, Killing is simple. Midoriya's stomach twisted. Osterman continued, calm and blunt. It does not solve what made him. It does not solve what you are. Midoriya's throat tightened. And what am I? Osterman's gaze moved to the campus behind Midoriya. The training fields, the dorms, the young heroes in training. A system, Osterman said, trying to create order from conflict. Midoriya's hands clenched around his notebook. We're people, he said quietly, not just a system. Osterman looked back at him. People are parts of systems. Bakugo snapped. Stop talking like you're above us! Osterman turned his head slightly. I am not above you. Bakugo barked a laugh. Liar. Osterman's eyes met Bakugo's. I am different from you. Bakugo stiffened. The words hit like a punch because they were true and spoken with no drama. Midoriya stepped in fast before Bakugo did something reckless. Mr. Osterman, Midoriya said, do you ever feel bored? Todoroki's eyes flicked to Midoriya, surprised by the question. Bakugo scoffed. What kind of stupid? Osterman answered anyway. Yes, he said. One simple word. Honest. Heavy. Midoriya swallowed. And when you're bored, what do you do? Osterman's gaze drifted past them like he was watching time itself. I observe, he said. I change small things. I wait. In my world, waiting felt endless. Midoriya's voice turned softer. Here, people don't get to wait. Osterman looked back at him. I noticed. Midoriya nodded. He took a breath. Then please, he said, if you stay, don't just watch. If you can help, help. Not because you're told, because you choose to. Osterman stared at Midoriya for a long moment. Then, very quietly, he said, Choice is the only thing you truly respect. Midoriya blinked. Yes. Osterman looked at Midoriya's notebook. You record details. Midoriya held it up without thinking. It helps me understand. Osterman's eyes lingered on the messy handwriting. Understanding does not create meaning. Midoriya's voice was steady now. No, but it can help you find it. Osterman said nothing. Then he turned and walked away, toward another building. Midoriya exhaled slowly, like he had been holding his breath for the whole conversation. Bakugo glared at Midoriya. You're insane. Midoriya's hand still shook. Maybe, he whispered, but I think he listened. Todoroki spoke quietly. He didn't argue. Midoriya nodded. That might be his version of arguing. That afternoon, the commission arrived at UA with polite smiles and sharp eyes. Nezu met them in a formal room. All Might stood behind Nezu like a silent warning. Hawks was there too, acting casual like he wasn't trapped between worlds. The older man in the suit spoke first. We appreciate UA's cooperation, he said. Nezu smiled. UA appreciates your concern. The woman in the suit placed a folder on the table like it was a gift. We have prepared an emergency classification, she said. We will assign the subject a status and a handler. Nezu's smile stayed. A handler? Yes, she said. For safety. All Might's voice cut in, polite but hard. He's not a child. The older man sighed. He's not a citizen either. Nezu's ears lifted slightly. We don't know that, Nezu said gently. We don't know what he is. The woman's eyes flicked toward Hawks. We know enough. He is beyond quirk law. That means he is beyond our control, unless we act now. Hawks's smile stayed, but his eyes sharpened. You keep saying control? That's going to go well. The older man ignored Hawks. We want UA to hand him over for government containment. All Might's posture stiffened. No. The woman's lips tightened. All Might. This is bigger than school pride. All Might leaned forward slightly. This is bigger than politics. There are children here, and he has already agreed to boundaries with us. The older man's eyes narrowed. Agreed. For now. Nezu's paw tapped the table once, calm but final. UA will not hand over a guest who has committed no crime. The woman's voice turned cool. Then UA will share all data, all tests, all recordings. Nezu's smile became sharp. We will share what protects public safety. The older man leaned back. And if he refuses to be registered? All Might's answer came fast. Then we find a way to coexist. The older man's eyes hardened. That is naive. Hawks spoke lightly. Too lightly. Naive is thinking you can put a leash on a being who can rewrite the leash. Silence fell. The woman's gaze locked on Hawks. Watch your tone. Hawks's smile did not move. Watch your plan. That night, in the dark, All for One listened to reports like a person listening to music. He did not rush. He did not shout. He did not panic. He smiled. So, he said softly, the heroes want trust. The Commission wants control. The children want hope. And Dr. Manhattan wants to observe. He leaned forward. Fingers steepled. Observation is a door, he murmured. You only need to know what to place behind it. Shigaraki's voice crackled through a speaker, impatient and angry. He should have killed me. All for One chuckled. No, he said. He should not have. Shigaraki growled. Why are you happy? Because he hesitated, All for One replied. He did not act like a simple disaster. He acted like a being who can be pulled by consequences. Shigaraki spat. He's still too strong. All for One's smile widened. Then we do not fight his strength. Shigaraki's voice lowered, suspicious. Then what? All for One's tone was gentle, like teaching a lesson. We fight his distance. Shigaraki went quiet. All for One continued. We create events where every option stains him. We push the public into fear. We push the heroes into demands. We push him into boredom and disgust. Shigaraki's voice sharpened. And then? All for One's eyes glinted. Then he chooses. And whatever he chooses, the world breaks in a useful way. Shigaraki laughed once, dry and ugly. You're insane. All for One smiled. Yes, he leaned back into the darkness. And we haven't even touched the best part, he whispered. Quirks. The next day, Nezu found Osterman standing in a hallway that led to staff offices. The hallway had a sign that said, Staff Only. Osterman stood under the sign like he was studying it. Nezu approached carefully. Mr. Osterman, Nezu said, that area is private. Osterman looked at the sign again. Private is a concept, he said. Nezu kept his voice calm. Yes, it's a concept we need you to respect. Osterman's eyes returned to Nezu. Why? Nezu blinked once. Honest question. No insult, no threat. Nezu chose simple words. Because people feel safe when they believe they can control who sees them. Osterman stared. Control is an illusion. Nezu's smile became tired. Sometimes. But it's an illusion that keeps people from panicking. Osterman paused. Then he nodded once and stepped back from the staff hallway. Nezu let out a tiny breath. It wasn't victory, but it was something. Osterman spoke again. I want to study your quirk factor. Nezu's ears lifted. Study it? Yes, Osterman said. It is increasing. It is unstable. Your world will face a collapse of control. Nezu's smile stayed, but his mind raced. Quirk singularity. It matched fears many experts had. You think you can stop it? Nezu asked carefully. Osterman's voice was calm. I can change the structure. Nezu's stomach tightened. Change people. Osterman looked at him. If the structure is within people, yes. Nezu held his gaze. Consent is not optional here. Osterman's face did not shift. Consent slows solutions. Nezu's smile hardened. Yes, it does. And we accept that cost. Osterman stared at him like Nezu was the strange one. Nezu took a slow breath. If you want to study quirks, Nezu said, we will do it safely. Away from civilians. With rules. Osterman's eyes narrowed slightly. Curiosity again. Rules. Nezu nodded. Rules. Osterman looked out a window toward the distant edge of the city, where older industrial zones sat empty like forgotten bones. A remote site, Osterman said. Nezu's heart sank because Osterman had already chosen the place, and because Nezu realized something else too. If Osterman truly studied quirks, the result could save millions, or it could rewrite humanity. Nezu forced his smile back into place. Then we will discuss a remote site, he said. Osterman looked at him. You are afraid. Nezu did not deny it. Yes, Nezu said softly, but I'm also responsible. Osterman's gaze stayed on the distant city edge. I will begin soon, he said. And Nezu realized the pivot had already happened. The next move would not be a fight. It would be a choice. The place Osterman picked was an abandoned industrial district near the coast, fenced off after a past villain disaster left it unsafe for normal business. Rusty cranes stood still. Empty warehouses leaned into the wind. Broken roads cut through weeds. Seagulls screamed above the gray water, like they owned it now. It was the kind of place heroes used for training sometimes, because fewer people could get hurt. Nezu did not like that Osterman chose it without asking, but Nezu liked even less what it meant. Osterman floated above the cracked ground and looked down as if he could see the tiny rules inside everything. Deku stood a few meters away with a helmet and goggles in his hands because someone had told him to wear safety gear. It felt silly, but he held them anyway. Todoroki stood beside him, calm face, alert eyes. Aizawa was there too, scarf loose, posture tired. Hawk circled above, feathers spread, acting like a sky camera. Nezu spoke quietly to Deku and Todoroki before stepping closer to Osterman. Observe, Nezu said. Take notes. Ask questions if he allows. And if anything feels wrong, you leave. No hero pride. No arguing. Deku nodded too fast. Yes, sir. Todoroki nodded once. Understood. Bakugo had not been invited. That did not stop him. He appeared on a broken rooftop nearby, arms crossed, scowl ready. Of course he's here, Aizawa muttered without looking up. Bakugo shouted down, If the blue guy blows up the world, I'm not letting you weaklings be the only witnesses. Aizawa sighed. I'm going to erase him, he muttered, but he did not actually do it. Osterman stood in the center of the empty street like he owned the concept of space. He raised both hands. The air in front of him folded. No, not folded like paper. It rearranged. Dust gathered into smooth lines. Metal scraps lifted off the ground and spun into precise shapes. Concrete fragments snapped together into walls that aligned perfectly, as if guided by invisible rulers. In less than a minute, a structure stood there, clean, white, simple. A small lab building with a wide-open interior, like a box made by someone who did not care about style, only function. Deku's mouth fell open. He built a building, Deku whispered. Todoroki's voice was flat. He made it. Hawks landed lightly on a beam, eyes sharp. "No permits," he joked. But the joke fell flat because everyone felt the same fear under it. Nezu walked into the new structure, calm as a teacher entering a classroom. Osterman followed. The others stepped in behind. Inside, the floor was smooth. The air was still. Simple tables formed from nothing. Sensors shaped from metal and glass appeared as if the atoms wanted to be useful. Deku lifted his goggles. He said, voice small. "This is safe?" Osterman looked at him. "Define safe." Deku swallowed. "Safe means it won't hurt people." Osterman's eyes held his. "Harm is relative," Aizawa's voice cut in. "No, harm is harm. Don't do that." Osterman looked at Aizawa. "You fear language tricks." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "I fear excuses." Osterman did not argue. He turned back to the table and lifted one hand. A tiny model formed in the air. Not a toy. Not a hologram. A real cluster of matter arranged into a floating shape that looked like a branching tree made of light and faint color. Osterman spoke like a teacher giving a lesson. "This is a pattern I have observed in your people," he said. "Your quirk factor." Deku leaned in slowly, like stepping near a wild animal. "That's inside us." "Yes," Osterman said. Todoroki's eyes tightened. "Can you see mine?" Osterman's gaze flicked to Todoroki's body, as if scanning him without effort. "Yes," Todoroki's jaw clenched. "Without permission." Osterman's voice was calm. "Observation does not require permission in the physical sense." Nezu's tone stayed gentle, but firm. "In the human sense, it does." Osterman looked at Nezu. "I will attempt to follow your preference." Deku felt a strange relief at the word attempt. It sounded like effort. It sounded like a being who could still learn. Osterman turned back to the floating model. "The pattern is unstable," he said. "It is intensifying across generations." Aizawa's stomach tightened. "Singularity." Osterman glanced at him. "Yes." Nezu's smile did not move, but his voice softened. "What happens if it reaches a breaking point?" Osterman's answer came too easily. "Bodies fail. Minds fail. Society fails." Silence filled the clean white room. Deku's hands clenched around his goggles. He thought of kids with powerful quirks losing control. He thought of friends. He thought of little Eri and how power could be a cage. He forced himself to speak. "Can you stop it?" Osterman looked at him. "I can change the structure." Deku's throat tightened. "That means changing people." Osterman's eyes stayed calm. "Yes." Nezu stepped closer, voice steady. "Not without consent." Osterman's head tilted. "Consent is slow." Nezu's eyes sharpened. "Yes. And we accept that cost." Osterman stared for a moment longer than before. Then he turned away, as if shelving the argument for later. He lifted his hands again. The floating model expanded. It stretched outward like a network map. Lines pulsed softly. And then, somewhere outside, a scream cut through the air. Everyone froze. Hawk's wings snapped open. "That wasn't here," Hawk said, already moving. Aizawa's scarf lifted. "Outside," he ordered. They rushed out of the lab. Across the street on the edge of the fenced district, a man had fallen to his knees. He wore a work jacket and held his hands out in front of him like he didn't recognize them. His palms sparked with tiny bursts of light, then went dark, then sparked again. His quirk was flickering like a broken lamp. A second worker stumbled out of a doorway, shouting in panic. His skin turned to stone in patches, then back to normal, then stone again. A woman screamed as her hair lifted like it was underwater, moving on its own, then dropped flat. Deku's heart slammed against his ribs. "Their quirks are misfiring," Todoroki finished, eyes wide. Aizawa's gaze snapped to Osterman. "Did you do this?" Osterman looked at the workers as if watching a result appear on a screen. "No," he said. "Not intentionally." Aizawa's voice sharpened. "Not intentionally!" Hawk's feathers flew out, guiding the panicking workers back, keeping them from slamming into broken metal. "Everyone stay calm," Hawks called, voice bright. "Keep distance. Breathe." The air felt wrong now. It buzzed. Not like electricity exactly. Like the world itself had too much pressure inside it. Deku watched a worker's quirk surge. Flames burst from his hands, then suddenly turned into thick smoke that choked him. The man coughed and fell back. Todoroki threw a wall of ice between the man and the spreading smoke, shaping it into a tunnel that pushed air outward like a funnel. "Move!" Todoroki shouted. "This way!" Aizawa's eyes turned red as he focused on the worker. The worker's quirk stopped flickering for a second. Then it flickered again. Aizawa's mouth tightened. "It's not one quirk," he muttered. "It's the environment." Nezu's ears flattened. "A resonance," Nezu said quietly, thinking fast. Osterman spoke in the same calm tone, as if the panic was background noise. "The patterns are interacting," he said. "They are syncing." Deku's stomach dropped, like a chain reaction. "Yes," Osterman said. Bakugo, on the rooftop, shouted down, "This is your fault. You broke their stupid quirk DNA." Osterman looked up at Bakugo. "Your accusation is based on timing, not proof." Bakugo snarled, palms crackling. "I don't need proof." Aizawa barked. "Bakugo, shut up and help evacuate." Bakugo flinched, then clicked his tongue and jumped down anyway, blasting small explosions into the air, not at people, but above them, loud and bright, forcing attention. "Move it," Bakugo shouted. "Follow the bird guy's feathers. If you trip, I'm not carrying you." Some people actually moved faster because his anger felt like a push. Hawks shot Bakugo a quick look. "Hate to admit it," Hawks muttered, "but that works." More screams came from deeper in the district. The quirk flicker spread like fire. Not normal fire. A quirk storm. A boy's eyes started glowing, then dimming. He cried because he couldn't see. His mother held him, shaking. A man's shadow detached from his feet for 1 second, like it had a mind of its own, then snapped back. Deku's mind raced. He thought of his friends. He thought of UA dorms full of quirks. If this spread there, he looked at Osterman, voice tight. "Can you stop it?" Osterman's gaze swept across the district. He did not look panicked. He looked like someone solving a hard equation. "I can," he said. Deku's chest loosened for 1 second. Then Osterman added, "But it may require rewriting the quirk factor in those affected." Deku's hope turned into a knot. Rewriting. Changing people without asking. Aizawa's voice was sharp. "No." Nezu's voice was softer but firm. "Not unless there is no other choice." Osterman stared at them. "Your ethics will cost lives." Deku felt his hands shake. He looked at the crying child. He looked at the workers collapsing. He looked at Todoroki, holding a safe path with ice, sweating from effort. He looked at Hawk's feathers, lifting debris, guiding crowds, doing 100 small acts of hero work that mattered. And then he looked at Osterman again. "Please," Deku said, voice cracking. "Save them, but don't take them apart." Osterman's eyes stayed on Deku. "What you ask may be impossible," Osterman said. Deku swallowed hard. "Then, do the best you can. The best that still leaves them. Them." For the first time, Osterman did not answer like a machine. He paused, and the pause felt like a decision being made. Then he nodded once. "I will attempt a contained stabilization," he said. Aizawa's shoulders stayed tense. "Contained how?" Osterman lifted his hands. The air around the district changed. A soft pressure pushed outward from him, like an invisible dome forming, but you couldn't see it. You could only feel it in the way the buzzing in the air shifted. Osterman's body split. Not in a gross way, not in pain. He duplicated. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, then 8. 8 identical blue men in UA tracksuits appeared around the district at different points, floating above rooftops and broken streets like silent anchors. Deku's breath caught. "Clones," he whispered. "They are me," Osterman said, and his voice seemed to come from all of them in the same calm tone. The blue figures raised their hands together. The buzzing in the air grew for 1 second, then dipped, like a wave being pushed down. Quirks around them slowed. The workers' flickering flames steadied into a low glow, then stopped. The stone patches on another man's skin faded and stayed faded. The boy's glowing eyes dimmed and stayed normal. It wasn't perfect. Some people still twitched with leftover sparks. Some quirks stuttered like they were tired, but the storm stopped growing. Hawks exhaled hard. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay, that's—" A sudden burst of energy cracked through the air anyway, right at the edge of the dome. A woman screamed as her quirk surged into something new for 1 second. Her hand sprouted sharp, clear crystal spikes. Then the spikes shattered into dust, leaving her bleeding. Deku flinched. "It's not over." Osterman's eyes turned toward the woman. One of his duplicates floated down beside her. He held his hand over her wounds. The bleeding stopped as skin closed neatly. Deku's stomach twisted. Healing that fast was amazing. It was also terrifying because it meant Osterman could change bodies like editing a photo. Aizawa noticed Deku's face. "Keep moving," Aizawa told him. "Help Todoroki. Don't freeze." Deku forced himself to move. He ran to the woman and helped lift her. Careful, gentle. "You're okay," he said, even though he wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. She stared past him at the blue man, like she couldn't decide if she should thank him or scream at him. Hours later, the district was quiet again. Not normal quiet, the kind of quiet after something huge has happened, and nobody knows what words to use. Emergency crews arrived. Doctors checked people. The commission sent agents with clipboards and cameras, asking questions with smiles that felt sharp. News drones hovered outside the fence like flies. Hawks watched a commission agent point at Osterman's lab and speak to a reporter with a serious face. Hawks drifted closer, just enough to hear. "It appears the anomaly triggered a quirk instability event," the agent said. "We are investigating." Hawks's smile disappeared for 1 second. Triggered. Investigating. Nice words that could turn into blame by sunset. Hawks moved away and pulled out his phone. He sent a short message to Nezu. "They're trying to frame it as his fault." "Be ready," Nezu replied almost instantly. "Already ready." Hawks looked across the district at Osterman, now standing alone again, his duplicates gone. The tracksuit still looked perfectly clean, like dust didn't dare touch him. Deku approached Osterman slowly, heart still racing. Osterman looked at him before Deku spoke, like he had already seen this moment coming. "I reduced the interaction," Osterman said. Deku swallowed. "Without rewriting them?" Osterman's gaze held his. "I did not restructure their quirk factor directly." Deku's chest loosened a little. Osterman added, "Some may still change over time because the pattern is unstable." Deku's relief stumbled. "So, it could happen again." Osterman nodded once. "Yes." Deku's voice turned small. "Then what do we do?" Osterman looked out over the city. "You continue," he said. "You adapt." Deku's hands clenched. "That's not enough." Osterman's eyes moved back to Deku. It is what you have always done." Deku froze. Osterman continued, voice calm. "You build heroes. You build laws. You build symbols. You attempt to keep meaning alive." Deku swallowed. "And you?" Osterman's gaze drifted, distant again, but not empty. "I observe," he said. Deku's shoulders sank. Then Osterman added quietly, "And I adjust." Deku blinked. "You're adjusting?" Osterman looked at him. "You asked me to choose." Deku's throat tightened. "And you did?" Osterman did not smile, but he gave a small, clear answer. "I did not take them apart," he said, "because you asked." Deku felt something warm in his chest that he didn't trust yet. Hope. Behind them, Aizawa watched from a distance, eyes tired. He didn't relax, not even for a second. But he did notice one small thing. When Deku stepped back, Osterman didn't vanish without warning. He paused. Then, in a stiff, awkward way that looked almost funny, he lifted his hand toward a nearby metal doorframe. He tapped it twice. A knock. It was not perfect. It was too quiet, too precise, like a machine copying a human habit. But it was a knock. Aizawa exhaled through his nose. "Huh," he muttered. All Might wasn't there to see it. But Aizawa almost wished he was, because for the first time since the station, Aizawa could imagine a new kind of danger. Not the danger of rage, the danger of a god, learning just enough humanity to be even harder to predict. That night, the Commission held a press conference. They did not show Osterman's face on the main screen. They showed the lab. They showed the fence. They showed the word anomaly in bold letters. They spoke about risk. They spoke about containment. They spoke about regulation. They spoke as if the world was still something they could hold in their hands. In the dark, All for One watched the press conference and laughed softly. "They are doing it. For me," he whispered. On another screen, he watched shaky footage of Osterman splitting into 8 and pressing the quirk storm down. All for One's smile sharpened. "He will not kill in public," he murmured. "He will not rewrite people easily." He leaned forward. "Good," he said. "That means he has lines." Shigaraki's voice came through the speaker again, impatient. "So what? We still can't touch him." All for One's tone was calm. "Touching is not the goal," Shigaraki growled. "Then what is?" All for One's smile turned quiet. "We make the world demand he crosses lines," he said, "and we make him watch what happens if he doesn't." He paused. "And when he stands at that edge," he added softly, "we will be there to offer him the easiest answer." Shigaraki went silent. All for One's eyes gleamed. "Purpose," he whispered, "or emptiness. That is the real battlefield." Far away, on the roof of UA, Dr. Manhattan stood looking at the lights of Musutafu. He did not breathe hard. He did not sweat. He did not look tired. But something about his stillness had changed since the station. He lifted his hand and looked at it like it was new. Then he looked out into the night again. "Someone is turning their head," he said softly, to no one, and the wind carried his words away like they were nothing. But the universe heard them, and it kept listening. 2 weeks later, the city had learned a new habit. People looked up more. Not because the sky had changed. The sky was still clouds and sun and rain. They looked up because sometimes the blue man was there. Hawks saw him first most days. Hawks would be flying over Musutafu on patrol, acting like everything was normal, smiling at kids on rooftops, and waving at old ladies who still treated him like a celebrity. Then Hawks would feel it, a soft shift in the air. A quiet wrongness, like a camera cutting to a new scene without warning. Dr. Manhattan would appear above a far street, floating in place, wearing the UA tracksuit like it was a uniform he had agreed to borrow. He would watch a situation for 1 second, sometimes two, and then fix it in a way that made the whole problem look silly. A gas leak in an apartment building. The broken pipe would become whole again, as if it had never cracked. A runaway truck. The engine would stop, then restart safely, and the driver would suddenly realize his brakes were working again. A villain with a dangerous quirk trying to attack a crowd? The villain's weapon would turn into harmless powder. The villain's shoes might stick to the ground like glue, and they would be left screaming while heroes ran in to cuff them. The first few times, people cheered. By the 6th time, some people cheered with shaky voices. By the 10th time, a few people didn't cheer at all. They just stared, like they were waiting for a cost. Hawks landed on a rooftop near Endeavor's agency one afternoon and found Endeavor staring at a TV replay of Manhattan stopping a bridge collapse. Endeavor's flames were low, but his jaw was tight. "You're watching that again?" Hawks asked, trying for light. Endeavor didn't look away from the screen. "He makes us look like children," he said. Hawks shrugged. "He makes villains look like children too." Endeavor finally turned, eyes sharp. "That's not the point. The point is, people are asking why we exist." Hawks didn't answer right away, because he had heard it too. A taxi driver had said it yesterday, laughing to hide fear. "Why do we pay hero taxes if a blue guy can solve it all?" A kid had said it outside a store. Is All Might still the strongest? Hawks leaned against the rooftop railing, trying to keep his voice calm. "Most problems aren't bridge collapses," Hawks said. "Most problems are small, ugly, human." Endeavor's mouth tightened. "And if the public stops believing small heroes matter, the whole system shakes." Hawks nodded. "Yeah." Endeavor's eyes narrowed. "So what do we do?" Hawks gave a tired smile. "We do our jobs, and we pray the blue guy doesn't get bored." At UA, the rules had become a daily battle. Not because Manhattan argued. He didn't. Because he didn't understand why rules mattered when he could ignore them without effort. Aizawa had turned rules into a routine. He treated it like training. Repeat it until it became automatic. He walked with Manhattan through empty hallways at odd hours, not because Manhattan needed a tour, but because Aizawa wanted him to feel the shape of the school like a person did. "This door," Aizawa said one night, pointing at the teacher's lounge. "You don't go in without knocking." Manhattan stared at the door. Then he lifted his hand and tapped the frame twice. It was too quiet, too perfect, like a machine copying a sound. Aizawa sighed. "Louder." Manhattan tapped again, slightly louder. Aizawa nodded once. "Better." Present Mike appeared behind them with a mug, froze, and then whispered, "He's learning," like he was seeing a ghost do homework. Manhattan turned his head. "Your voice is always loud." Present Mike pointed at himself, offended. "That's my brand, buddy." Aizawa muttered, "Don't encourage him." Nezu had written a simple Manhattan protocol and taped it to a board like a school rule sheet. No appearing in dorm rooms, no appearing in bathrooms, no scanning students without asking, no changing anyone's body without consent. If leaving campus, tell Aizawa or Nezu first. Manhattan had looked at it for a long time. Then he had asked, "Why is the bathroom listed separately?" Nezu had smiled too brightly and said, "Because humans would like to keep their dignity." Manhattan had nodded once, as if filing it away with other facts like gravity. He followed the rules most of the time. When he didn't, it was never to be cruel. It was usually because he forgot a boundary existed. Once, Deku was in the training gym alone, practicing footwork, sweat on his forehead, trying to fix a small weakness he hated. He turned, and Manhattan was just standing there at the edge of the room. Deku yelped and nearly fell. Manhattan tilted his head. "I did not hear you grant permission." Deku clutched his chest. I didn't even know you were outside." Manhattan stared like the idea was confusing. "I was not outside. I was elsewhere." Deku took a shaky breath. "Please," he said, trying to be polite. "Can you knock next time? Or announce yourself? My heart is not built for this." Manhattan looked at him. "Your heart is fragile." Deku forced a nervous laugh. "Yes, that is true." Manhattan's gaze drifted toward the floor, then back. "I will attempt a warning." The next day, Deku was in the dorm kitchen, and a quiet tap-tap came from the air beside the fridge. Everyone turned. Manhattan stood there, hand still raised like he had just knocked on nothing. Kirishima screamed. Kaminari screamed louder. Bakugo shouted something rude. And then, because they were teenagers, they all started yelling at once. "You can't knock on air! Don't appear in the kitchen! Why are you in our food zone?" Manhattan looked around calmly. "This room is used for nourishment." Bakugo pointed at him like he was about to explode. "Get out!" Manhattan looked at Bakugo. "Your anger is consistent." Bakugo's face went red. "Stop saying that!" Deku stepped between them fast, hands up. Okay, he tried. "That's progress." Bakugo snarled. "Progress? He's a walking disaster." Manhattan's gaze moved to the sink, where a cup sat crookedly. Without thinking, he adjusted it. The cup slid into a perfect alignment with the edge of the counter. It was a tiny thing, but the room went quiet, because everyone felt it. Even his small movements changed the world. Aizawa arrived 1 minute later, hair messier than usual, eyes tired. He stared at Manhattan. "Why are you here?" Manhattan answered honestly. "I wanted to observe how young humans socialize outside combat." Aizawa pointed toward the door. "Out." Manhattan looked at the empty air beside the doorframe, then tapped it twice like he was leaving politely. He vanished. Kaminari let out a breath. "I think I just aged 5 years." Bakugo muttered. "He's doing it on purpose." Deku looked at the place Manhattan had stood and whispered, "No, I think he's trying." Bakugo shot him a look. "You're going to get us killed." Deku didn't argue. He wasn't sure Bakugo was wrong. The city's fear didn't stay quiet. The commission kept pushing. A temporary emergency order was announced. It had nice words and sharp teeth. They wanted Dr. Manhattan registered as a special threat grade individual. They wanted a government handler. They wanted full data from UA. They wanted to build devices just in case. Hawk stood in another clean meeting room, the same older man and the same woman across the table, and he could feel the trap building. "It's not an insult," the woman said smoothly. "It's safety." "You keep saying that," Hawks replied, still smiling. "Like it makes it true." The older man slid a paper forward. "We're asking for cooperation. He must be contained during high-risk hours." Hawks glanced at the paper, then looked up. "Contained where?" The older man didn't blink. "A secure facility." Hawks' feathers twitched under his jacket. "You can't contain him." The woman leaned forward. "We can contain the environment. We can contain information. We can contain access." Hawks's smile faded. "You're going to isolate him." The older man spoke like he was tired of morals. "We're going to prevent panic, and we're going to prevent him from choosing the wrong side." Hawks's voice went calm in a different way. "He doesn't like being owned." The woman's eyes sharpened. "Then we make him understand. Ownership is the only way he can stay here." Hawks stared at her. He thought of Manhattan tapping on empty air. He thought of a being who could turn a bridge into dust, choosing to knock like a polite guest. And he thought, if they corner him, they won't get control. They'll get a reaction. Hawk stood. "I'll pass your request along," he said lightly. The older man nodded. "Do that." Hawks walked out smiling. The moment the door shut, His smile vanished. All for One chose his moment like a chess player. Not when Manhattan was in the open, surrounded by cameras and hero teams and public eyes. He chose a quiet evening, a night when Manhattan stood alone on a rooftop, watching the city lights like they were moving dots on a map. A soft sound came from behind Manhattan, not footsteps, not a door. A small speaker, set carefully on the roof, began to play a calm voice. "Dr. Manhattan," the voice said. Manhattan did not turn at first. He already knew where it was. He could have known without looking. He turned anyway. The speaker was plain, cheap, the kind you could buy anywhere. It had been placed there like a note left on a table. The voice continued. "You don't know me," it said, "but you will." Manhattan's face stayed calm. "I recognize the pattern of manipulation." A quiet laugh came through the speaker. "Good," the voice said. "Then we can speak honestly." Manhattan did not respond. The voice softened, almost kind. "Your world had war. Your world feared you. They tried to own you. They failed." Manhattan's eyes narrowed a fraction. "You have studied me." "I study everything worth using," the voice replied. "And you are worth using." Manhattan stared at the speaker like it was a bug under glass. The voice continued, steady. "This world is sick. You can see it. Quirks are spiraling. People will suffer. Children will suffer." Manhattan's gaze drifted toward the city, as if he was seeing the future problems like shapes on a timeline. "Yes," he said. The voice became gentle. "And you can fix it." Manhattan did not move. "Fixing requires choices." "Exactly," the voice replied, warm as honey. "So let me offer you a clean one." Manhattan said nothing. The voice spoke clearly, like pitching a plan. "You can remove quirks," it said. "Or you can stabilize them. You can rewrite the pattern before it breaks the species. You can end this endless cycle of heroes and villains." Manhattan's eyes stayed on the city. "That would change people without consent." The voice chuckled softly. "Consent is a word humans use when they can afford to be slow." Manhattan's face did not change, but the air around him felt colder. "You are repeating the same argument I have heard," Manhattan said. "Yes," the voice replied, "because it is true." Manhattan turned fully toward the speaker now. "Who are you?" The voice paused, like savoring the moment. "In your language," it said. "I am the one who understands how power works in human hands." Manhattan's voice stayed calm. "All for One." The speaker made a small clicking sound, like a smile in audio form. "You're quick," All for One said. "Good. Then you already know what I want." Manhattan answered simply. "Control." "All humans want control," All for One said. "The heroes want control with rules. The Commission wants control with chains. I want control with truth." Manhattan tilted his head. "Truth?" All for One's voice lowered. "The truth is that most humans cannot handle freedom. They panic. They beg to be saved. They beg to be led." Manhattan stared. "And you would lead them." "Yes," All for One said. "And you can help me do it in one day." Manhattan's gaze drifted again, as if he was watching multiple possible outcomes. "You believe you can make me your tool," he said. All for One's voice stayed calm. "Not a tool, a partner." Manhattan said, "I have had partners." "And you left them," All for One replied smoothly. "Because you got bored. Because you couldn't find meaning." Manhattan's eyes focused, sharp now. "You are attempting to provoke emotion." All for One chuckled. "I'm attempting to offer you an exit from emptiness." Manhattan looked at the speaker for a long time. Then he said quietly, "You want me to cross my lines." All for One's voice became almost gentle again. I want you to stop pretending lines matter more than results. Manhattan's voice stayed flat. You misunderstand what I am learning here. All for One paused. Oh. Manhattan looked toward UA in the distance. Humans value choice even when it hurts them. All for One laughed softly. That's weakness. Manhattan replied. It is also definition. The speaker went quiet for a moment. Then All for One said, Very well. If you won't take the clean offer, I will create a dirty situation. Manhattan's gaze stayed on the speaker. All for One's voice sharpened just a little. You will be forced to choose anyway. The speaker clicked off. Manhattan stood still. He did not look angry, but he did not look distant either. He looked like a being who had just been challenged in the one place he could not solve with physics. The next day, Aizawa called a private meeting with Nezu, All Might, Hawks, and Midoriya. They met in a plain room with plain chairs, the kind of room that existed for hard talks. Aizawa spoke first. He was contacted. Nezu's ears twitched. How do you know? Aizawa's eyes were tired. He told me. Hawks exhaled. That's nice of him. All Might leaned forward. Who contacted him? Aizawa looked at Midoriya briefly, then back at the table. All for One. Silence hit the room. Midoriya's heart thumped hard. He tried not to show fear, but he wasn't. All Might. His face gave him away. All Might's expression stayed steady, but his eyes went sharp. Did he respond? Aizawa shook his head. Not with agreement. Nezu's smile was thin. That's good. Hawks rubbed the back of his neck. It's not good enough. Aizawa nodded once. Exactly. All for One doesn't ask once. Midoriya swallowed. What did All for One offer? Aizawa stared at the floor for a second, then said it plainly. A solution for quirks, control, rewrite, end the cycle. Midoriya's hands clenched. He wants Manhattan to change everyone. Nezu's voice was soft. Yes. All Might's shoulders rose with a slow breath. And Manhattan? Aizawa's eyes lifted. He didn't say much, but he said something important. Hawks tilted his head. What? Aizawa's voice went quiet. He said, All for One wants him to cross his lines. Midoriya's stomach twisted. Then All for One is going to hurt people to force it. All Might nodded slowly. Yes. Nezu tapped the table once. Then we prepare. Not with force, Nezu said, looking at Hawks, but with planning. Hawks gave a humorless smile. Planning is my love language. Aizawa looked at Midoriya. You're not going to be a hero in this part. You're going to be a human. Midoriya blinked. What? Aizawa's eyes stayed hard. You're the only one he talks to without sounding like a report. That matters. Midoriya swallowed. I'll do it. All Might's gaze softened toward Midoriya. Be careful, he said. Midoriya nodded. He thought of the quirk storm. He thought of the way Manhattan had paused when he begged. He thought, if a god has lines, someone will try to break them. All for One didn't wait long. The trap came on a Saturday afternoon, when Musutafu was full of people trying to feel normal again. A new hero exhibition had been set up in a large plaza. It was partly a morale event, partly a political show. The commission had pushed it hard. They wanted cameras. They wanted smiles. They wanted control of the story. Hawks had argued against it. Endeavor had argued louder. Nezu had sent warnings. The commission held it anyway. Midoriya stood near the edge of the crowd with a small pro team, wearing casual clothes, trying to look like a student on a day off. His eyes scanned faces the way Aizawa had taught him. He felt sick. This place was too crowded, too open, too easy to turn into a disaster. Then the first scream hit. Not from the stage, from the middle of the crowd. A man stumbled, clutching his head. His quirk surged out of him like a broken hose, bright energy snapping from his skin, then turning into sharp wind, then into heat. People around him screamed and fell back. Then another person's quirk stuttered, and another. Midoriya's blood went cold. A quirk cascade. Here, in the most public place possible. "Evacuate!" a pro-hero shouted. Hawks landed above the stage, wings spread, voice bright and loud. "Everyone move to the exits. Follow the feathers. Don't push!" Feathers flew out like road signs. Endeavor blasted a wall of fire into the air, not to burn people, but to create a clear barrier, guiding movement like a giant arrow. Midoriya pushed through the crowd toward a kid who had fallen, lifting them up, pushing them toward a safe lane. His hands shook. This was like the industrial district, but worse, because the crowd was bigger and the cameras were everywhere. Midoriya looked up, searching the sky. He felt the air shift. Dr. Manhattan appeared above the plaza, floating in the open, blue skin bright in daylight. UA tracksuit, clean as always. The crowd saw him and screamed again, but this time the scream split into two kinds: fear and relief. "Blue Hero!" someone shouted. "Save us!" "Stop it!" Midoriya's throat tightened. Manhattan looked down at the crowd like he was reading a living map. He lifted his hand. The cascade slowed. Not stopped yet, but slowed, like a storm being pressed down. Then something new happened. A dark shape fell from above. A body. A man dropped from a rooftop and landed hard in the plaza, cracking stone. Shigaraki rose from the crater like a nightmare on purpose. Dust fell from his shoulders. His eyes locked on Manhattan. His smile was wide. "Hello," Shigaraki said, loud enough for every camera to catch. "Do it." Midoriya's heart slammed. This was it. This was the moment All for One wanted. Shigaraki spread his arms wide like a performer. "Everyone," he shouted, "look at your god!" He slammed his hand to the ground. Decay raced out. Stone crumbled in a fast wave, tearing through the plaza floor toward packed civilians. People screamed and ran. Endeavor blasted fire at the advancing Decay line, trying to cut it off by breaking the path, but Decay didn't care about fire. Aizawa dropped in from the side, scarf snapping, eyes glowing red. "Shigaraki!" he shouted. His erasure hit Shigaraki. The Decay wave slowed, just a fraction. Shigaraki laughed. "Ah, you're here too." Manhattan didn't move fast. He didn't need to. He raised both hands. The decaying ground stopped decaying. The crumbling stone held its shape again, stabilized, like the concept of falling apart had been paused. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed. Shigaraki's eyes gleamed. "Now kill me," he said, voice sharp. "Come on, prove you're not just a mascot." Midoriya felt his stomach drop. Shigaraki pointed at the crowd. "Or don't," he said, grinning. "And let them rot while you protect your precious lines." Aizawa's jaw clenched. "He's baiting you," Aizawa muttered, not sure who he was talking to anymore. Manhattan looked at Shigaraki. Then he looked at the people whose quirks were still stuttering, still sparking, still dangerous. Manhattan could end Shigaraki in an instant. He could also rewrite hundreds of people to stop the cascade perfectly. Both choices would cross a line. Midoriya stepped forward into the chaos, voice shaking but loud. "Mr. Osterman!" he shouted. Manhattan's gaze flicked to him. Midoriya swallowed hard. "He wants you to do it in front of everyone," Midoriya shouted. "He wants you to become a weapon on camera." Shigaraki laughed. "Listen to the kid. He thinks he can talk you down." Midoriya's hands clenched. His eyes burned. "You can save them without becoming him," Midoriya said, voice cracking. "Please." Manhattan stared at Midoriya. Then he did something Midoriya didn't expect. Manhattan spoke to Shigaraki, calm and clear, loud enough for cameras. "You want a performance?" Manhattan said. Shigaraki's grin widened. "Yes." Manhattan nodded once. "Then observe." Manhattan's body duplicated. One Manhattan stayed above the plaza, hands raised, holding the cascade pressure down. Another Manhattan appeared beside Aizawa, another above Endeavor, another at the edges of the crowd, guiding civilians away by moving debris, opening safe paths, lifting fallen people gently. Shigaraki's grin faltered for half a second, because the problem was no longer one target. It was everywhere, and Manhattan was everywhere too. Shigaraki lunged anyway, fast, aiming straight for the Manhattan closest to him. Manhattan didn't step back. He lifted one finger. Shigaraki stopped mid-stride, not frozen by ice, not grabbed by ropes, stopped like motion had been turned off for him. Shigaraki's face twisted with rage. "What?" Manhattan floated closer, calm. "You want me to kill you in public," he said. "You want fear to become my identity here." Shigaraki snarled. "So do it." Manhattan looked past Shigaraki at the cameras, at the crowd, at the heroes. Then Manhattan spoke again, flat as truth. "Killing you would be simple," he said. "It would also be a gift to the one who sent you." Shigaraki's eyes widened a fraction. Manhattan continued. "So I will not gift him your death." Shigaraki shook, trying to move, but couldn't. "Then what?" he spat. "You'll let me go again?" Manhattan's gaze drifted across the plaza where quirks were still stuttering. "No," Manhattan said. He placed his hand near Shigaraki's chest, not touching like a punch, more like a careful adjustment. Midoriya's breath caught. This was the line. Manhattan could do anything to Shigaraki. Manhattan's voice stayed calm. "Your body contains a pattern that causes collapse when it spreads," Shigaraki sneered. "Talk harder." "I don't care." Manhattan's hand moved slightly, like turning a dial. Shigaraki suddenly gasped, not from pain, from absence. His fingers scraped the air like he was trying to find something inside himself. "My quirk," Shigaraki whispered, panic flickering in his voice for the first time. Manhattan looked at him. "I did not remove you," he said. "I removed your access." Shigaraki's eyes went wild. "Give it back." Manhattan didn't answer. He turned his head toward Aizawa, then toward Endeavor, then toward Hawks. "You will restrain him," Manhattan said, like assigning a task. Aizawa's eyes stayed hard. "Can you keep it off?" Manhattan's gaze returned to Shigaraki. For a time. Aizawa moved instantly. His scarf wrapped Shigaraki, yanking him down. Endeavor stepped in, flames ready if needed. Hawk's feathers pinned Shigaraki's limbs with careful pressure. Shigaraki screamed, furious. "This is cheating!" Manhattan looked down at him. "It is a boundary!" Then Manhattan turned back to the crowd. The quirk cascade still stuttered through people like static. Manhattan's duplicates worked fast, but Manhattan didn't perfect fix anyone. He stabilized. He contained. He guided emergency crews. He kept it from becoming a mass death event. People still got hurt. Some fell. Some cried. Some panicked. But the cascade stopped spreading. And no one was rewritten in front of cameras like a science project. When it was over, the plaza looked like a storm had passed through. Broken stone, scattered signs, ambulances. But people were alive. Midoriya stood near a fountain, breathing hard, hands shaking. He looked up and saw Manhattan floating above. Still calm, still blue, still too much. The crowd stared. Some people cheered weakly. Some people backed away. A reporter shoved a microphone toward the nearest hero. "Is he a hero?" the reporter demanded. "Is he a weapon? Did he just take that villain's quirk?" Endeavor's voice boomed. "Back up!" Hawk stepped forward with a practiced smile, but his eyes were tired. "He saved lives," Hawk said. "That's what matters," the reporter pushed. "Did the government authorize him to act?" Hawks' smile tightened. The ground was collapsing. I don't think the ground waited for paperwork. Above them, Manhattan looked toward the edge of the plaza where commission agents were already moving in, faces tight, eyes sharp, cameras ready. He could see what they wanted. A headline, a leash. Manhattan vanished. Not in panic, not in escape, in choice. He reappeared at UA, on the roof, where wind and distance gave a little quiet. All Might was already there, as if he had felt it coming. All Might's smile was not bright today. It was small and real. "You saved them," All Might said. Manhattan looked out over the city. "I reduced harm." All Might stepped closer. "That was hero work." Manhattan didn't respond right away. Then he said, "The Commission will attempt to claim authority." All Might's eyes narrowed. "Yes, they will." Manhattan turned his head slightly. "They will fail." All Might's breath caught. "That sounds like a threat." "It is a prediction," Manhattan replied. All Might's voice stayed steady. "Then let us handle them. Don't make this worse." Manhattan stared at All Might for a long moment. "I do not want to be owned," Manhattan said. All Might nodded once. "Neither do we." Manhattan's gaze drifted toward the dorms. "I also do not want to be the center of this society," Manhattan said. "It is inefficient." All Might blinked. "Inefficient?" Manhattan's voice stayed calm. "Most problems are human scale. They require human trust, human sacrifice. I am not suited for that daily role." All Might's eyes softened. "But you still helped." Manhattan looked toward where the city lights began, even in daylight, in screens and traffic and movement. "I will help," Manhattan said. "But not as a tool." All Might's shoulders eased a fraction. "Then what will you be?" Manhattan's answer came after a pause that felt like he was weighing many futures. "A boundary," he said. "A deterrent. A guardian against collapse." All Might nodded slowly. "You'll step in when it's world level." Manhattan turned back to him. "Yes." All Might's voice softened. "And the rest, we handle." Manhattan stared at him. "You believe you can?" All Might's smile grew a little, stubborn and familiar. "We choose to believe it," he said. Manhattan looked away again. Then, in a strange moment that felt almost normal, he lifted his hand and tapped the rooftop doorframe twice. All Might blinked. "What was that?" Manhattan's voice was flat. "A courtesy." All Might laughed once, short and surprised. "You're learning." Manhattan did not smile, but he did not deny it. That night, the Commission made demands. They sent letters. They threatened licenses. They spoke of risk and public trust and unregulated power. Nezu answered with calm words and strong walls. UA refused to hand Manhattan over. Hawks played the middle as best he could, smiling while blocking the worst ideas. Aizawa wrote new rules on the board. Midoriya sat on his bed and stared at his notebook, thinking about a villain whose quirk had been turned off like a switch. He didn't know how he felt about it. He only knew it had been necessary, and he only knew it had not been done for show. Outside, in the dark, All for One listened to the news and smiled slowly. "They didn't break," he murmured. Shigaraki's voice came through another line, hoarse with rage. "He stole it. He stole it from me." All for One's voice stayed calm. "Temporarily," Shigaraki snarled. "I'll kill him." All for One chuckled softly. "No, you won't. Not with your hands." Shigaraki's breathing was rough. "Then how?" All for One's smile sharpened. "With the world," he said. We will make the world demand he becomes what it fears. He paused. And if he refuses, All for One added, we make the world blame him anyway. Shigaraki went quiet. All for One leaned back in darkness. The game has begun, he whispered. Later, when the school was quiet and most lights were off, Midoriya climbed the stairs to the rooftop. He didn't know why he came. He just felt pulled. Like a question in his chest wouldn't let him sleep. Manhattan stood at the edge of the roof, looking out over Musutafu. The wind moved his tracksuit slightly. He did not shiver. Midoriya walked closer, stopping a safe distance away. Manhattan didn't turn. You are awake, Midoriya swallowed. Yes. For a moment, Midoriya didn't know what to say. The city stretched below them, full of people who didn't know how close disaster had come. Midoriya finally spoke, voice small. You could have killed him. Manhattan's voice was calm. Yes. Midoriya's hands clenched. You didn't. Manhattan said, no. Midoriya took a breath. Was it because of me? Manhattan turned his head slightly. His eyes met Midoriya's. It was because of your world, Manhattan said. Your world believes lines matter. Midoriya's throat tightened. Do you think we're worth saving? The question came out before he could stop it. It sounded childish the moment it left his mouth, but it was real. Manhattan stared at him for a long time. Then he looked back at the city. You continue, Manhattan said, even when you know you will be hurt, even when you know you may fail. Midoriya's voice trembled. That's just life. Manhattan's gaze stayed distant. In my world, I stopped believing in small effort. Midoriya swallowed. And here? Manhattan's pause felt different now. Not empty, not bored, thinking. Here, Manhattan said, small effort is the structure. Midoriya blinked. The structure? Manhattan's voice stayed simple. It is what holds your society together. Not power, not fear. Choice. Midoriya's eyes burned. He looked down fast, wiping at his face like it was just wind. Manhattan glanced at him. You are crying. Midoriya laughed weakly. Yes. Sorry. Manhattan stared for a second, like he was observing something important. You are not apologizing for sadness, Manhattan said. You are apologizing for being seen. Midoriya went still. Then he nodded slowly. Yeah. Manhattan looked back at the city. I will remain, he said. Midoriya's breath caught. You will? Manhattan nodded once. But I will not replace you. Midoriya took a shaky breath. Thank you. Manhattan didn't respond the way people usually did. He didn't say, you're welcome. He lifted his hand and tapped the air beside the rooftop doorframe. Tap. Tap. Then, as if remembering, he turned slightly and tapped the real frame instead. Tap. Tap. A better knock. Midoriya let out a small laugh through his tears. That's better, Midoriya said. Manhattan looked at him. Improvement is measurable. Midoriya nodded. So is trust, he said quietly. Manhattan stared at him for a long moment. Then Manhattan said something that sounded simple, but it hit Midoriya like a promise. I will attempt to be careful, Manhattan said. Midoriya looked up at the blue man and saw, for the first time, not warmth, not joy, not normal human comfort, but effort. A choice being made, again and again, even by someone who didn't need to. Below them, the city kept moving. Heroes trained, villains planned. The commission wrote new rules. The news kept talking. Life continued, just different now. And in the quiet above it all, a god learned to knock before entering.